Hello everybody, my name is Aleksei Postnikov. I'm a former political journalist from Russia and now I'm a political immigrant in United States of America. Here with me, Galina Bogatova. She's a PhD in political science and professor of international relations or relationships.
Relations.
Yeah. So in this series of videos, we want to address some of the topics about Russia, since there are not a lot of sources in English. There are a lot of sources in English, but as we think, not enough. I have some experience in political journalism in Russia, so it's fair to say that I have some idea how Russian political system works, how Russian media works, just from my experience and observations. And Galina here, she studied. What exactly did you study and what's your area of expertise?
So for 4 years now, I was studying Russian foreign policy and more specifically regional politics with the near abroad countries like Ukraine, Georgia, Kazakhstan. And I was tracing the colonial experience of Russian Empire from the origin of the state, Rus, and then the following process of imperial expansion to nowadays, which is still imperial. So I also track the current, modern day politics of Russian Federation in the near abroad.
Again, in this series of videos, we want to answer your questions about Russia. So don't be shy and let us know what do you want to know about, for example, Russian politics. Like, why Russian people do not protest, and do they really support the war? At least the most of Russian people, the majority of Russian people. Is it true or is it not?
Yeah, that's indeed a very hot topic right now, and I also join you in terms of personal interest in this. We are all in the same boat right now. We're political asylees. And also it would be unfair and I think unjust to keep it just for ourselves, because there's so many questions or just probably either misunderstanding or misinformation about what is going on in Russia right now in the English-speaking media. And as Alex rightfully mentioned, it's very good questions like, do Russians really support the war? If not, why don't they overthrow Putin? On my end, I sometimes get questions like, does Putin really specifically target ethnic minorities during the mobilization? Because a lot of narratives comes about how specifically the regions that are predominantly non-Russian getting the most are getting the most hurt and victimized during the mobilization and military conscript during the wartime. And is it really race-based? Is it really the foundation for it? Is it really racial hierarchy? Or how, what's the reason behind that, right? So I would love to address that. If you are interested, please, again, put the comments, and, if you're not interested, well, silence. But I would really love your feedback on it.
Right, and as a journalist, I can talk about how Western, speaking generally, media addresses this problem, because the racial angle is very important, specifically here in the United States. So it's really
pronounced, right?
Yes,
it's very explicit.
But is there any issue with that? Did it somehow maybe misinterpret the events of the actual mobilization in Russia?
Or not, right? Or
not, yes. And then following that, we can talk about another interesting topic, which is kind of connected to the previous one. Can we say that Russia is a colonial empire? Yes or no? And if yes, why it's so weird? And here I think Galina has a lot to say.
Oh yeah, that's specifically my focus of research. So that's very interesting question, because the experience of colonization, it affects a lot the present day racial hierarchy in societies, right? The way the country was developing, the way the empire was expanding, and what practices it used for colonization, it defines a lot the present day intersections of oppression and how it looks like. Really, it's like very complicated, and it might be difficult for certain the representatives of a certain paradigm of colonialism to assess the Russian way to do it. So I would love to address how racial segregation looks in Russia, and how racial hierarchy, how social hierarchy looks like, how the questions of intersectionalism are addressed there, like gender, class, and race, how they play out together, and how it is different from the American style. I've been living in the United States for 7 years, so I can already draw some parallels and point out some differences. If you're interested in this, please let us know. Would be my pleasure.
Yeah. And continuing, I think pretty much all of our topics in one way or another are pretty controversial. That's why we're doing all that, to, shine some light or give our input on some really important questions. For example, we talked a little bit about media, Western media before, but another topic is Russian media. First of all, Russian media is divided between media that operates in Russia, which is now, it's fairly to say, only propaganda, like 100% government-controlled media. One way or another, it's controlled by the government. And then on the other hand, we have Russian independent media, and they need to operate in exile, and they're facing a lot of challenges. Should they be using the language that aligned with general, let's say, language patterns of European media and Ukrainian side, or should they address people in Russia? Mm-hmm. And to do that, they need to use a different language, and what kind of a dilemma they're facing. So we can talk more about Russian media in Russia or in exile. If you want to know more about this, again, let us know in the comments. Please do. We're happy to talk about this for a long time.
Yeah, and I agree, that's a very important question, because it's really hard to draw the line between national interests of the country that hosts you and the interests of the people in Russia, and try to influence them to create a more pacifist narrative there, and to pacify them and to discourage them to go to war. What kind of tools are legitimate when you're speaking from abroad, right? To draw this line is very it can turn out really dangerous issue. I would like to add to that two more items. The first one is concerning the regime transformation in Russia, because sometimes here and there I see that in the media, in the I would say English-speaking media, because that's the language I can read for now, Russian and English. I noticed that they call Russia a totalitarian regime, which makes sense, and there are reasons behind why people would think that it's totalitarian. But I would like to raise the question: is it really so? Is it authoritarian, totalitarian, also some kind of hybrid regime? And what traits from both of the regimes did it inherit right now? And which way it is going right now? Like what to expect? By no means I would put forward any forecasts. Of course, I'm not Vanga or any oracle. Nostradamus, by no means. I would like to talk about the present and some hints that we can catch from the current processes, how to analyze the retrospective of the regime transformation and draw some conclusions or hypotheses, how to envision that process in the future. And the second one, I get this question because it is very present. This issue is very present in the discourse in the United States, but it's not so much discussed in Russia, which is feminist movements, and the question of Russian mothers who are trying to either save their sons and or husbands, right, yeah. Wives, and I would frame it as Russian women and what is their voice right now in this situation? Do they actually have a say? What kind of tools do they have, and do they use them? How are they being victimized or empowered by this?
Or even being used by the regime, because there are examples of that shows that it is a really rising issue right now. After mobilization started, a lot of men left the country, a lot of men got mobilized, and women,
they definitely have access to the position that they were deprived before. And that's the situation of the Red Revolution, right? Women actually started the revolution in 1917 because all the men were pretty much in war, except Kollontai and her textile workers. Would it be possible to create this kind of case right now, when everybody is the majority of population would just assume be mobilized in the future years, in the upcoming years? What kind of role would women have in the country? What kind of women? What kind of representation do we have women to benefit from it? Do we have women who support the war? And what reasons do they have to support the war? Do we have women who oppose it based on female solidarity, like feminist movements? Or do we have women who oppose the war based on their relative connection or love connection, right, to the connection to the men? So what kind of agenda do we have in terms of the women's question in Russia?
So as you can see, we just dropped 6 or 7 topics. Each of them has like subtopics. So it looks like a big growing tree. So naturally we cannot address that in one short video, which is this one, because this video is introduction. Because we're Russians, it's really hard to point to a small question that maybe someone had for a long time, but we're afraid to ask because, it seems like a silly questions. Again, there are no silly questions. So our plan is to address one of the big topics in the following videos, one of the big topics, and then answer some questions from you guys. So also, hopefully we're gonna have some guests.
Oh yeah, I would love to, because we are talking about this questions of race, for example, right, and gender. I think it would, as a white woman, still with an immigrant experience in Russia. I was born in Kazakhstan and migrated in Russia when I was 14. I'm still white, so there is no way I can really speak on behalf of people who actually experience the oppression based on race in Russia. So that's a very complex topic, and we definitely will have some guests who will help us to discover this for you guys.
Right? Great. Yeah. So I guess that's it for today. This video. Again, let us know anything you want to know about Russia, and we'll try our best to answer your questions. I'm Aleksei. You can call me Alex. This is Galina, or...
I prefer Gala, but it's fine.
Gala? Yeah, well, it's a free country. We can do
yeah, finally.
Yes.
Yeah, guys, my name is Gala, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the topics we listed.
All right, well...
Thank you, Alex.
Yes. See you next time.
Thank you for your attention.
Bye.
Bye.